The young and the restless spoilers. A tempest is gathering over Genoa City, and at its eye stands Amy, a woman racing against her own mortality to expose a deception that threatens not just a family legacy, but the very safety of innocent lives. In the shadows of the Winters estate, Damian Winters has risen to prominence, cloaked in privilege and inherited power. Yet Amy, once believed to be his mother, now recognizes the dark currents swirling beneath his polished exterior. Armed with long-buried secrets about both Damian and the mysterious Aristotle Dumas, she prepares to ignite a reckoning that will shake the foundations of everything the Winters name has come to represent. Amy's awakening. For years, Damian Winters has been the golden boy of Genoa City, handsome, ambitious, and ostensibly driven by the desire to expand the family empire. But Amy's instincts told her there was more to his ambition than met the eye. Late at night, she pored over old letters, buried financial ledgers, and whispered testimonies from those who dared to speak against Damian's rise. What she uncovered was chilling: backroom deals orchestrated to silence critics, clandestine transfers designed to empty bank accounts, and a carefully maintained facade of philanthropy masking a far darker pursuit of power. Even more disturbing were the shadows that fell upon Aristotle Dumas, the enigmatic mastermind who first inserted Damian into the Winters lineage. Amy discovered that Aristotle's own past was paved with manipulation, decades of constructing false narratives to ensnare the unwitting. His greatest triumph, planting Damian in the Winters family, inventing a story so convincing that even Nathan "Nate" Winters, Damian's devoted younger brother, hailed him as kin without hesitation. Racing against time. But Amy's battle is not waged on a level playing field. A few months ago, doctors delivered a verdict she could not ignore. Metastatic breast cancer, stage 4. Time became her most precious commodity. Each sunrise reminded her of the ticking clock, each sunset of the legacy she was determined to leave. Rather than retreat into despair, Amy resolved to transform her final days into a testament of courage and truth. She refused to let her illness define her, choosing instead to reclaim agency over the one thing she could still control: her voice. Perched on the edge of her hospital bed, intravenous lines humming softly, Amy crafted a plan. She would confront Victor Newman, the most formidable figure in Genoa City's business and social circles. Victor's allegiance to the Winters family had always been one of convenience, but Amy believed his sense of justice could be stirred, if only he had all the facts. The fateful afternoon. On a bright spring afternoon, April 24, 2025, Amy summoned Victor to the rose garden behind her estate. The air was crisp, fragrant with budding blooms that belied the gravity of what was about to unfold. Victor arrived in his trademark tailored suit, his steel-gray eyes narrowing as he took in Amy's pallor. She welcomed him with a fragile smile, then led him to a wrought iron bench beneath the climbing roses. There, amid the riot of pink petals, Amy began her confession. She spoke of her failing body, of the cancer that would soon overtake her. She confessed her deepest regret, remaining silent as Damian embedded himself ever deeper into the Winters dynasty. Then she dropped the bombshell: the Damian was no Winters by blood. He was Aristotle Dumas's creation, a pawn in a game of inheritance and deceit. Exposing Aristotle's conspiracy, Amy laid out the web Aristotle Dumas had spun. Years ago, Aristotle had approached her with whispers of a secret child born of a brief, ill-fated union. She was told that Damian, raised far from Genoa City, bore the Winters bloodline in his veins. The story was bolstered by forged documents, paid-off doctors, and actors posing as distant cousins. The aim was clear: plant Damian within the Winters fold, then use his outsider's perspective to siphon control of the family's vast fortune. Estate directives, wills, and trust clauses were all quietly realigned to favor Damian, positioning him to inherit half of the company and enough liquid assets to bend Genoa City's business landscape to Aristotle's will. Victor listened, his face a mask of disbelief that gradually hardened into resolve. Amy's voice, though soft, carried the weight of years of suppressed regret and the urgency of a life drawing to a close. She handed Victor a dossier: handwritten letters, notarized forgeries, and video-recorded admissions from minor players Aristotle had since silenced. You know what happens when someone gifts you power under false pretenses, she said. They can take it away just as easily. Nate's unraveling faith outside the Rose Garden sanctuary. Nate Winters paced the estate grounds, oblivious to the confrontation unfolding mere feet away. His loyalty to Damian was absolute. The bond of brotherhood ran deeper than blood, or so he believed. Rumor had it he was preparing a toast to Damian's mother at an upcoming family gala, a celebration of unity that Amy now knew would be nothing but a portrait of lies. When the truth inevitably reached Nate, a matter of hours, perhaps minutes, he would face the hardest choice of his life. Would he cling to the brother he idolized, or embrace the revelations of a dying woman determined to protect the innocent? The seeds of doubt Amy planted in Victor's mind would soon reach Nate's heart, shattering the illusions he'd held all these years. A legacy of courage as the sun dipped below the horizon. Amy and Victor parted ways. No grand promises were made. Victor only nodded, pocketing the dossier and meeting Amy's gaze with a silent vow to act. Inside, Amy felt a calm she hadn't known since her diagnosis. She had done what she came to do, leveraged her final strength to shield Genoa City from Aristotle's machinations and to save innocent lives from collateral damage. The next chapters of the Winters saga will be written in corporate boardrooms, courtrooms, and perhaps in hushed family meetings. Damian's fate hangs in the balance, and Nate's faith in his brother stands on a knife's edge. But thanks to Amy's sacrifice, the scales of truth have been tipped. Whether justice prevails or the shadow of deceit falls once more upon Genoa City, one thing is certain: when her time came, Amy chose to fight for the light, and in doing so, she ensured that her last act would be remembered not as a story of illness, but as a testament to courage. Victor Newman sat in his office late into the evening, the dossier Amy had handed him spread out before him. Every instinct in his blood, honed by decades of boardroom battles and family dramas, warned him that things were seldom as straightforward as they appeared. Yet, the gravity of Amy's revelations pressed on him. Could he afford to dismiss her claims? After all, she had nothing to gain by lying. Her illness left her no room for personal vendettas. If anything, her confession came at great personal cost. Should Victor trust Amy? Victor's first priority was always the stability of his alliances and businesses, and his trust was not given lightly. But Amy's reputation in Genoa City had always been one of quiet integrity. She'd lived on the periphery of the Winters empire, never vying for spotlight or power. Now, with her final days numbered, she risked everything to expose a lie that, if true, undermined half a century of heritage. That alone spoke volumes. Moreover, from a purely strategic standpoint, casting doubt on his most loyal partners, Nate and Damian, could be far more damaging if Victor ignored her and was later proven wrong. In this game, information was the ultimate weapon. Even the hint of deception demanded immediate scrutiny. How long has this been going on? Amy had told Victor that the scheme dated back at least a decade. Rumors of Damian's mysterious origins first surfaced shortly after Aristotle Dumas quietly brokered his introduction to the Winters family. At the time, the story was hand-delivered in sealed envelopes, birth certificates translated from a foreign hospital, letters from supposed midwives, and a handful of photographs of a child who bore an uncanny resemblance to the Winters line. Victor marked the dates in his mind, around 2015, when the first shift in estate directives quietly elevated Damian's inheritance stakes. Over the years, minor anomalies had surfaced. Odd transfers of funds, unexpected board votes in Damian's favor, but each warning sign was rationalized away as corporate maneuvering or youthful ambition. By the time Amy confronted him, the web had been woven for nearly 10 years. Damian and Aristotle's secret communications. Amy admitted she'd never met Aristotle Dumas in person. All interactions between the two men took place through carefully orchestrated channels designed to leave no trace. Through her investigations, she uncovered 3 primary methods: burner phones and encrypted apps. Damian maintained at least 3 unregistered mobile devices. Every few weeks, he'd swap SIM cards, use a secure messaging app with self-destruct settings, and rendezvous at pre-arranged coordinates to photograph new instructions or financial directives left in dead-drop locations, often a hollowed-out surveillance camera housing in the outskirts of Genoa City. Anonymous courier drops packages containing flash drives or handwritten notes were delivered to post office boxes under false names. Amy had managed to intercept one such package, an envelope postmarked from a P.O. box in New Jersey. Inside was a single sheet of paper, next move at CEO dinner. Act normal. No signature, but identifiable handwriting that, with further analysis, Amy believed matched Aristotle's existing samples. Shell company accounts. Monetary transfers flowed through a labyrinth of offshore accounts held by front company shells. Amy tracked several transfers into an entity called Dumas Ventures, then out again to accounts Damian controlled. She suspected these funds were Aristotle's thank you payments for Damian's loyalty and execution of certain covert tasks within the Winters conglomerate. The face of Aristotle Dumas Victor leaned back in his chair, staring at the blurred image Amy had passed along. An old security cam shot of a tall figure in the shadows, his features obscured by a hat and scarf. "We need a name," he murmured. But Amy shook her head. She confessed she'd never laid eyes on Aristotle directly. All her intelligence came secondhand, filtered through Damian's careful hand. That made Aristotle all the more dangerous, an invisible puppeteer whose identity Victor would have to unmask the hard way, through surveillance, financial subpoenas, and perhaps the grudging cooperation of Damian himself. Surveillance begins within the hour. Victor had mobilized his private investigators. Damian's routine would be monitored, his vehicles bugged, his office swept for hidden cameras, his meetings cross-referenced against Amy's notes. Every communication, every transaction, would feed into a dossier that might finally reveal Aristotle's true face, or at least force Damian into a corner where he'd slip up. Victor knew this was high-stakes chess. If Damian suspected he was under watch, he might vanish, or worse, come after Amy to silence the only whistleblower left. The danger to Amy's cancer made her vulnerable in ways she refused to acknowledge. Victor's investigators discreetly scanned local hospital records, noting the schedule of her treatments. He hired discreet security for her estate, stationed plainclothes guards near her home, and instructed them to watch for unfamiliar faces or vehicles. Yet the greatest threat came not from random thugs, but from Aristotle's own network. If he learned that Amy had gone straight to Victor, he would see her as a liability to be erased. Amy's strength lay in her anonymity, and once Victor publicly backed her, she would become a marked woman. But that risk only strengthened Victor's resolve. If Amy fell, the truth might die with her. And if the truth died, Aristotle's scheme would continue unchallenged. A turning point. Victor paused, taking in the spring moonlight filtering through his office window. He picked up his phone and dialed Nate Winters. "I need you here. Now." When Nate arrived, bleary-eyed from a late-night meeting, Victor handed him the dossier. "I want your honest opinion," he said. "Not as a brother, but as a man who cares about this family." As Nate flipped through Amy's evidence, conflict warred in his eyes. Could he reconcile the brother he knew with the puppet Amy described? And would Victor's trust in Amy prove to be their salvation, or the spark that ignites a war within the Winters dynasty? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain, the watch was on, the game had changed, and Amy's gamble, made on borrowed time, had forced Genoa City's most powerful players into an all-in showdown with a ghost. 2 of 2.